two action-packed games from Giant Stadium. Tonight at 10:30, it's the Pirates of Seton Hall against the Indians of Montclair State. Then on Sunday, you'll see Keene College take on William Patterson, beginning at 12:30. Join Dick Landis and Tom Longo for play-by-play and color commentary.
Wait a minute. I can't talk to you now. I can't talk to anyone at Camera 3. Don't you hear what they're playing? Don't you hear that song? Oh, they're playing my song. Oh, yeah, they're playing my song. And when they're playing my song, everybody's got a shh, shh, shh.
Camera 3, a fascinating look at some of the most creative people of our time. This week, Oscar-winning songwriter Marvin Hamlisch.
Don't miss Camera 3, Sunday at 8. You are watching New Jersey Public Television. WNJT, Channel 52, Trenton.
Come on, let's go, you guys. Come on, fellas. There you go. Hey, you stop that. Now, you get out of here. Go on, get up. Get. I'll tell you a little bit about Clinton. Before we do the show tonight, I came down here about 2 hours early just to get the feel of the town. And about an hour, the cars are going to start coming in. The people are going to start coming down Route 22. It's a beautiful summer day in mid-July. And we're going to do an outdoor concert to the benefit of the Clinton Museum. And we're looking forward to it. We've been looking forward to it for a long time. But the town itself, I'd like to talk a little bit about it. It's one of the untouched beauty spots of New Jersey, I think, personally. I've been down here many times, and the river flows. They have a little bridge that goes over to the museum through the main town. But Clinton was not named after a Jerseyite, oddly enough. It was named after the governor of New York at the time, DeWitt Clinton. And, of course, DeWitt Clinton was a very big man in these parts back in those days. Can you imagine today a town in New Jersey being named after, say, Governor Carey? Things were different in those days. And this town predates the Revolution by many years. Many of the buildings that were here before the Revolution are still here. And I'm sure that the ducks look just about the same now as they did then. Beautiful town, you know. When you get into a place like this, when you take a look at Clinton, you can understand why they call it the Garden State. You know, it always confuses people who live in Newark and Passaic and places like Secaucus. Why the heck they put Garden State on the license plate? Well, when you get out in this part of Jersey, it really does look like a garden. This is the kind of stuff that Walt Disney, the Operation Disneyland, spends millions of dollars to create artificially. And here it is, just Jersey. And here are your typical Jersey residents here, looking for the scoff, quacking like mad, looking for a handout. Well, all right, gang, let's take a little walk around the town of Clinton. In about an hour and a half, we'll be ready for the concert. I better take my duck food here. My friends expect a little... Come on, let's go, fellas. Beautiful spot. Hey, Rod. How you doing, man? Fielder's mitt. How you doing?
Good.
My God, where'd you get this?
An old fella brought it in for repair, one of my endless repairs.
He must have been an old fella. That's about a 1916 glove.
On a nose.
Did he use it in action?
Yes, he did. I asked him. He did.
Well, feel good, man. You come to the show tonight?
Definitely. Wouldn't miss it.
When was the last time that I spotted your smiling face in an audience?
1968. University of Miami.
Correct.
A great show.
You are a fantastic laugher. See you there tonight, man.
I'll be there.
Well, it's about time to go to work. Oh, it's been kind of nice walking around town here in Clinton before the show, just sort of looking the scene over. Oh, by the way, this is the Clinton House. Used to be an old innkeep place where the stagecoaches came and dropped by and people had their dinner. 1740. They say George Washington ate here. Nice town. I'd like to have time to have dinner here, but the show is about to begin in about 15 minutes. The crowd is assembled, and Shepard is ready to go out and give them hell. Come on, let's hear it. Hey, I want to say one thing. This is the first show that I've ever done where before I came on, the stage manager says, "Look out for falling rocks." That's right. God, what a fantastic setting. Makes me feel primitive. I mean, you know, look at that sheer cliff there. Do you know how much it cost them to build that? Clinton Museum goes first class. That's all made out of silly putty. Jersey silly putty, of course, which just mined out near Plainfield. And by the way, this is Clinton, New Jersey. For those of you who've never been here. Now, wait a minute, at ease. Are you applauding never having been here? You never could tell. The mysterious audience wildly applauds at nothing, you know. All you gotta do is name a town, somebody applauds. Clifton. Have you ever been to Clifton? Oh. Plainfield. Hell. Applaud. By the way, my favorite picture of a New Jerseyite is standing in line at the Dairy Queen. Midsummer. He's got his Madras shorts that he got at the Great Eastern. By the way, I miss the Great Eastern. How many people here felt that when the Great Eastern left Route 22, something of the soul of Jersey left? I mean, especially on a Saturday night, the Great Eastern was like a gigantic compost heap. Humanity moiling and boiling. And all the Jerseyites would descend like locusts on it. Saturday night, you'd see them coming in their 53 Dodges into the parking lot, trailing smoke. And they'd come piling out, and they roar along the floor, you know. They got these carts they're pushing, you know. The women all have these kind of pink barrels in their hair. You know, these great big plastic barrels. The old man's walking along. That's Jersey, God, it's Jersey. They want to buy anything. Big piles of stuff, 89 cents, reduced. They just buy it and run. 3 weeks later, somebody in the house says, "What the hell was that thing we bought? It has plastic knobs on it." Doesn't matter. It's life. Who cares what you buy? It's action. Every couple of minutes at the Great Eastern, you'd hear the sound that would say, "Your attention, please, shoppers." Sound just like them, right? "Your attention, please. Your attention, please." And don't turn it down. Let it, come on, keep it up. Your attention, please. I wish we could get a little feedback. True Great Eastern feedback. For the next 12 minutes, there will be a sale of used donuts. 49 cents a dozen in our beautiful bakery department. You see this crowd? Whoa! They're buying donuts that just 5 minutes before were 39 cents a dozen. Who cares? I noticed some of you are laughing.
The others are looking very serious. They see nothing wrong with buying used donuts. What's funny about that? That's the Jersey soul. So, gang, I'm glad to be here in Jersey. Let's hear it for Jersey. Come on. What the hell you got damn little to cheer for? You're here in the Garden State. It's the only garden in all of Jersey, right here. I've often wondered about guys that live in Secaucus, putting their Garden State plate on the back, you know? Oh, you got it! Oh, yes, I knew you would. That's not easy. What with the 90-degree temperature? This is very erotic. Do you realize what we could do here tonight? And see, everybody thinks we're at the Clinton Museum. It's a cultural event. Just turn out all the lights and perform a human experiment in true communication. We could keep this concert going till August. Every once in a while, the lady at the museum looks out. She's like, I don't know what they're doing out there. It looks like one of those things on one of those Greek vases. How many here would like to be invited to an orgy? I'm afraid we're Americans. We wouldn't know what to do. That's a sad thing. You get invited to an orgy, and the guy says, well, what is your pleasure? And the only thing you can think of is a Diet Pepsi. And don't forget the straw. Oh, God. Well, I love this heat. I really do. I think heat is probably the one thing that is the most erotic element of all the things that God has laid on us. You never think of say, Eden or heaven. You never think of heaven having snow. You can't imagine the angels ice skating. Playing their lute, earmuffs. I tell you, angels do not ski. And here we're sitting here tonight on the hottest night of the year. 97% humidity. I say that down inside of every person's soul in this crowd, no matter how old he is, nor how young he is, there lies a latent satyr. That's spelled with a Y. A little creature with horns. It's got a tail flicking in the back. Sitting on the top of your pancreas. All the while you're walking around, you know. Nice ladies here trying to look official. But Freud knew something else. Inside of everyone is this animal that is waiting to be tapped. And when it's tapped, there is no turning back. It would spread like nuclear fission from Route 78 all the way to historic Route 31. By the way, there's a big fist fight going on down here outside of the Stony Brook Inn on Route 31. Two guys sideswiped each other. Windshields all over the place. The doors of their car are up in the trees. These guys are yelling, and they both have bumper stickers that say, "Pray for me, I drive Route 31. And by the way, I have noticed that the guys that use those bumper stickers on their cars are the guys you got to watch out for. 100 miles an hour, they go by you, trailing smoke. But I'll tell you, whenever it gets, I love the heat. I really do. I'm a hot weather type. And I come from a state that makes New Jersey look air conditioned. Indiana, gang, at this time of the year, this would be a cool fall afternoon. I'm serious. 115 degrees, day after day. And over in the distance, you see the steel mills. A flickering of red flame in the sky. Once in a while, the blast furnace is tapped, and you see, whoo. You see the sparks rising high. The lake stretches out, Lake Michigan, that is. Lake Michigan is the only lake in America you can actually walk on. The water is so polluted, you get a good run, and you can run all the way to Manistee, Michigan. They have signs in front of the lake there. It says, do not light matches in this area. You throw a lighted match in Lake Michigan, and I'm telling you, it's going all the way up to Canada. Giant blowtorch. And there I was, a kid, growing up. You'd smell the lake at night. You could, by the way, the lake had a very particular smell in Indiana, because once in a while, a great big bubble would come to the surface. Some mysterious, noxious gas. Bloop. Yeah, you'd stand there and watch the lake, and see. The air would shimmer for a moment. God knows what it was that gave that gas up. And under what circumstances. Bloop. And you'd smell it. I'm laying in a sack there. Temperature 112, 115. Of course, it's cooled off. It's evening now. The Chicago White Sox have dropped their 23rd straight game. And the sky is a brass color, except over the steel mills, where it's a rust color. It's the only place where the sky rusts. All that blast furnace dust hangs in the clouds there, and it rains, and it gets rusty. Simple. So, you know, when people talk about pollution, and they talk about the Raritan River, I once saw the little Calumet, which comes right out of Lake Michigan. It's like a drain sump at the bottom of a colossal cosmic septic tank. It's a great image, isn't it? A river that's attached to a septic tank. I mean, picture it. And picture the people living on the shores of it and going down there fishing at night. God, can you imagine what kind of fish you'd catch in a septic tank? There are fish in there. Little green things with... The only fish I ever saw that had snorkels. Now, many of you didn't come thinking you would hear this. I could see several ladies in the audience already. I could just read them lips. John Gambling never talks like this. And I remember as a kid, that first kitchen. Temperatures, 105. Got linoleum. Blue and yellow. That was its original color. Its now current color is linoleum color. It had this zinc strip that ran around it. Where the linoleum hooks together, they tack the zinc down there. Every once in a while, my old man would come in and he'd catch his shoe in the zinc. He'd say, "Goddamn zinc!" One night I saw him, in a fantastic fit of rage, grab the zinc and just went around pulling it up. My mother says, "The linoleum won't stay down." He said, "The hell with the linoleum!" And just then the linoleum rolled right up. Caught my kid brother in it, rolled them all the way to the John. Don't laugh, you sadist. You're laughing at human misery. Listen to him, that's sickening. And my mother, hot. She had this Chinese red chenille bathrobe. And it was rump sprung down in the back. Had a little petrified egg on the lapel, see? That was a mother combat badge. And she always had her hair up in these aluminum rheostats. All little rheostats all over her head, you know? Her hair was always up. I remember once in a while, somebody in the house would ask her, Mom, why you put your hair up? She says, you never know when something might happen. Never did. She is still in Indiana with her hair up. And she'd stand over the sink. And boy, that sink was fantastic in the summertime. At this sink, the old man is sitting at the kitchen table. We had one of these white enamel kitchen tables with the, you know, with the little chips all around it. Had this drawer in the middle you put all the crap in, you know. Mysteriously, somebody saved 3 empty spools, string, a broken scissors, half a deck of cards, 2 clothespins. It was all packed up. Nobody opened it anymore. If you open it, it's going to leap out, you know. It just stayed there. And if you put your nose real close down, right on the surface of that table and sniffed, it smelled like the vomit of thousands of kids. Now, wait a minute, gang. That is, I grant you, in bad taste. You ever had a sneaking suspicion that so is life? You'd smell it, see? My mother had this endless rag moving over it. Every couple of days, my kid brother would spill out used Campbell's tomato soup on it. That was one of his weapons. He could do it at will. Oh, you know. My mother would say, there, you did it again. Then he'd pause and whoop, up would come a Twinkie. He always kept the Twinkie for last. And in case of real emergency, you should see what he could do with used fig bars. By the way, how many of you in this crowd are secret fig bar fans? Oh, I'll tell you, the Fig Newton crowd is a small but dedicated crowd with a monkey on their back that is lifelong. Whore. Oh, I like a Fig Newton. By the way, maybe many of you don't know, though, that the fig, the Egyptian date fig, when it is in a state of creation, is created by a tiny moth that flies inside the fig and pollinizes that poor little fig flower. And then the flower closes up. There's the little moth caught in there. He gives his life to the fig. And that means every time you eat a fig, there must be 5,000 dead moths in them Fig Newtons. Wait till Ralph Nader hears of that. You didn't? Now, I'm telling you a botanical truth, gang. I'm not inventing this. These are the things you live, learn, work with over a lifetime of travail. And I can see my mother over the sink. It's that hot summer day. In the distance, you could hear the muttering of the steel mill, a flash of flame in the sky. The old man has come home from work. And by the way, on a day like this, my father had a special technique for coming home from work. He has been at the office all day long. The office has been maybe 250 degrees. He's been driving the Oldsmobile home. And by the way, our Oldsmobile normally indicated 212 degrees. It's the only car I ever saw that boiled over when the temperature was 40 below. Boom, the wood goes up. The old man hated his car. He also loved it. That love-hate relationship that many people feel for their mates. One lady has just fallen to the floor. They're in hysterics. I know what side has got the better in her crowd. Love and hate constantly battles it out. And my mother standing over the sink. I see this on a hot night like this. She's getting ready for supper. Now, on a hot night like this, she had a specialty called salmon salad. You know, big can of salmon, it's red salmon, and you'd sit there and pick backbone out of it. She mix it up with onions, a little vinegar, salt, and pepper. Put it on some Indiana lettuce, which, by the way, is the only lettuce that can be reused. Inedible, but it looks great. They just wash it off and use it again tomorrow. The old man is squatting at the kitchen table. It's been a bad day at the office. He has just come in, his typical hot weather way. The way he came in, you could hear him running up the back steps of the back porch. Dum, 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 dum. Then you'd hear dum, 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 dum across the back porch. The screen door flies open and his shirt comes in. By the time he hits the refrigerator, which was halfway through the kitchen, he is down to his jockey shorts. He would hit the John running. You'd hear a lot of water splashing. He'd come out, he's got his underwear on. The only guy I knew who could make jockey shorts look like they were missing a button. Life was real for my mother. He'd give it down, he'd come in, squat down. He'd open the refrigerator, reach in, get a can of Blatz beer. That's a special beer brewed for Chicago White Sox fans. It's an angry, muttering beer. You know the beers that always say light? The beer that you should drink when you're having more than one. If you could make it through the first Blatz beer, it was the greatest beer that I've ever heard of or seen for burping. He'd grab a Blatz. He used to like to take the can and shake it. This is his first beer today, and he'd chug a like it. My mother's hanging over the sink. The meatloaf is on. He's got the sport page out in front of him. White Sox drop pair to Cleveland. Now, it's almost impossible to lose a ball game to Cleveland. And the headline underneath it would read, Luke Appling drives out of park 2 tape measure fouls. By the way, a tape measure foul, if you don't know what that means, that is a moment of triumph for a White Sox fan. And he'd sit there, drink his beer. My kid brother's on the other side of the table, playing with his food. My kid brother did not eat until he was 7. He played with his food. just play with the food all the time. My mother, by the way, finally cured that in his 7th year because my Aunt Glenn gave him for his birthday one of these little kid books, you know, that are made out of oilcloth. You can throw up on them, and you can do other things we can't even mention on a stage. You can do it on them, you know, it doesn't matter. You just wrench them off. And it was about the 3 little pigs. You remember the 3 little pigs? Had this house made out of brick. One guy had a house made out of straw. That really caught my kid brother. So one day he's playing with his food, messing around. The old man is getting mad. The old man used to sit there and he'd say, "Are you going to eat?" My kid brother Randy's art form was the whine. Oh, God. He could make his nose run at will. Every time I think of my kid brother, I always think of him as about 2 feet behind me and to my left. There he is. My mother used to say, "Take him with you." I took him on dates. Yeah, I go to the Orpheum with this girl, and I'm sitting there with my arm around her, and his nose is running on my sport coat. He'd sit behind me. I remember that scene so clear. My mother hanging over the sink. It's hot. The old man's had his first beer. The salmon salad is waiting to be served. We had this green dish, green glass in the shape of Shirley Temple. Worth a fortune now. Cost my mother 35 cents at the Orpheum for a ticket. Got a green glass in the shape of Shirley Temple. And by the way, the salad was right there where her gut would be. Looked a little obscene. Wonder how many guys were sexually traumatized by dishes. Like you drink your glass of milk, and at the bottom, looking up at you, is little orphan Annie. And it's got cocoa malt in it. I remember for years I wanted to get cocoa malt because there was a show on the radio that, you know, sponsored by cocoa malt, and the announcer kept saying stuff like, "It's rich, creamy, chocolatey, delicious goodness. Makes milk taste like a luscious malted milk." And I kept after my mother. "I want cocoa malt, Mom." She says, "Isn't milk good enough for you?" "I want cocoa malt." She says, "All right." 2 weeks of constant nudging, and she finally said, "I'll get your cocoa malt. Just shut up. But you've got to drink it all." Little did I realize what that meant. The first night I sat down with my glass of milk and I took the cocoa malt and put the big heaping teaspoon of cocoa malt into the glass. And you know the way it just makes a rich, delicious malted milk. All these little brown BBs sank to the bottom. There's nothing but BBs in the bottom of the milk. So I stirred it up, I put some more and more BBs. I said, "Well, I guess it must taste like a rich chocolatey malted milk." I took a sip. It tasted like fermented milk of magnesia. My mother says, "You're going to drink all of it. You're going to have cocoa malt every night." And for 2 months, I drank cocoa malt. It clogged my system, made my teeth brown. I got so I actually kind of liked the taste of milk of magnesia. Now I mix a little vodka with it, you know. A little twist of lime. Not bad. My mother's sitting there, and then the sink would do it on a hot night. We had a sink that on nights like this, immediately following supper at 6:15, the sink would go, my mother would leap up with her Brillo pad. She was a true Midwestern mother. If there was a coat of arms for Midwestern mothers, there would be a field of Brillo pads and a crossed pair of plumber's helpers. My mother believed, like all ladies of her time, that she could Brillo pad away all of the world's sin. If she could get the ultimate Brillo pad, everything would be great. If you were clean, everything's fine. Everybody's had this thing where the mother says, change your underwear. You might get hit by that Mack truck. Can't you just see the scene, you know? Bang, a truck hits you and you're up in here. 5 minutes later, the surgeon is looking down. He says, look at that underwear. Take him out. I won't. That's a sickening kid. Get him out of here. What kind of mother does he have? I remember my mother hanging over the sink, and at first it would do it, it had a regular routine. The first one would go, oh, and she'd get ready. There would be 2 beats. 1, 2. The old man would look up from his next beer. My kid brother had stopped playing with the peas. And the sink would then go, that was the second one. It was the third one. 3 beats later. 1, 2, 3. Up would come a half a pound of Mrs. Bruner's coffee grounds next door. We traded coffee grounds with the Bruners. Would come out of our sink. My mother would stick some down in hers and flush it. You'd see it fly up in the Bruner's sink. You could see it. I'll never forget the time when it started to work with the John 2. Yeah, everybody was in bed, you know. All of a sudden, our John, all by itself, went boom. We got everything that the Bruners had collected at a picnic. Sickening. Life is real, life is earnest. But there was one moment of joy. On a hot summer night, one of the big things that the old man loved to do, and I bet you've had this in your own family, he would come running home. He's in a good mood tonight, you know, one of those nights. He says, how is everybody? Hey, everybody okay? Come on, let's get cracking here. It's a beautiful night. The blast furnace is going away. He says, I'll tell you what let's do tonight. How about it? How about this, kids? After supper, if you eat your supper, I will take the whole family out for ice cream. How many of you had that scene in your life? Oh, wow, you know, the kid brother, oh, wow, he ate the damn peas. He ate the meatloaf. He even ate turnips. That is duty. That's way above the call of duty. After supper, we go out the back, and there's the Oldsmobile. By the way, our Oldsmobile was maybe fourth hand. Had a little split there where the window was cracked from some ancient driver who owned it. How many of you ever had a used car in your family? Well, almost every car you buy today, 5 minutes after you got it, it's a used car. That's right. But I mean a really used car where every time you clean it, or you brush out the floorboards, other stuff shows up. Under the seat. You wonder, what the hell kind of life were they living? Who was this? Well, I'll never forget the time one night my kid brother pulled something out of the back seat, was stuck down in between the door rest, pulled it out, and the old man took one look. Kid brother says, "What's this?" Now, for those of you in the crowd who have to ask, what's he talking about? I can only say you got a lot to learn about life, or let's say the lack of it. Oh, that got him in the back there. Wonder what's going on back there, out there in the darkness. Anyway, we get in the Oldsmobile. The old man backs out of the driveway, turns the car, heads it down into the main stem there. And it was this place that we always went to called the Igloo. That's a Midwestern Dairy Queen. It was the Igloo. And being a very clever crowd, they had a big plastic igloo on the top. It says Igloo. By the way, they spelled it with a U. That's Indiana cleverness, Igloo. Looked like the name of a very, very esoteric union. International Gumpox Leaveners Union. Igloo, big black letters up there. And we would drive down to the Igloo, see? And that was a big moment in our life. As we get close to the Igloo, there's a lot of arguments in the car, you know, what we're going to get tonight. My mother was she was always saying, but strawberries, my favorite. Mothers eat vanilla. They really like it. Mothers also eat Jell-O. There's never been a normal person who liked Jell-O. Mothers keep thinking other people do. But actually, it's only mothers who eat Jell-O, especially with canned peaches in it. Now, there's a treat for you, right, gang? Oh, that's really a big night, you know. Once in a while, canned pineapple. I mean, that's on a holiday. And so we're going down to get the ice cream at Igloo, and they had 500 flavors. They had everything. Boy, the Midwest really went for flavors. I mean, watermelon grape. I'm not kidding you. There was a watermelon grape ice cream. It tasted like watermelon grape. Cornflake ice cream. Yeah, you get cornflake, grape nuts ice cream. You ever had it? Grape nuts, cornflakes. Alka-Seltzer ice cream. They had all these flavors. Everybody loved those fantastic flavors. Great flavors. Root beer. They had have you ever had Coca-Cola flavored ice cream? There is such a thing. It's terrible. But so we'd go down to the ice cream place, and Mr. Ferguson was in charge of the Igloo. Now, I knew his kid, Johnny Ferguson, and that was a magical kid. His father owned the Igloo. And all these guys that worked there, you know, they got these white coats. They had hats. By the way, the hats were rounded on the top like a little igloo. These guys looked like a Korean combat team. Got little white hats. And they had all these canisters of ice cream back here, thousands of them. And, of course, on a hot night like this, there'd be maybe 50 people waiting for ice cream cones. They made these fantastic ones. 3-ball, 2, 5. You could get a 6-ball ice cream cone. Came in a shoulder holster. Dripping behind you, you know. It was just really a debauch. And you'd get in the car and you'd sit there and you'd eat the ice cream. And then after that, as a real treat, you people from the East don't even probably suspect what some of the esoteric pleasures are of parts of the country that are very alien to here. The old man would say, okay, let's drive down to the lake. It was night. There'd be a moon up there, hot. I'm telling you, Jersey mosquitoes are small potatoes. Indiana mosquitoes are twin engine. 5-6 inch wingspan. You'd actually see them coming in formation. I mean, they got mosquitoes out there, and they had hooks on their feet. So we would drive out to the lake. Now listen what we would do. We would drive out to the lake. Hot night, just like this, July. And we would park on the big concrete parking lot and looking out over the lake. You could see the moon. And what were we looking at? The steel mill. Yeah, the steel mill jutted out way out into the lake, and at night the steel mill lights up like magic. Fantastic. Green and red and yellow flames. And they would flicker on the water. And people would park in the darkness. They're doing it right now, I'll guarantee you, on the south side of Chicago. They would park in the darkness and watch that fantastic display. It is beautiful, by the way, of all those flames on that flickering water. We'd sit there and eat our ice cream. You could hear the mosquitoes. And peace was there. No, real peace. And then we would drive home, covered with bites. My mother would take out this stuff, witch hazel, put it all over you. You'd go to bed and lie there in a sack with the witch hazel cooling. And out in the darkness, you'd hear trains moving to the east. You'd hear the sound of those trains. Whoo, big diesels roaring by. And out there in the Midwest, you used to think the east, they're going east. And to me, the east was always magic. That's where the trains went. I'd see cars on the Indiana Turnpike. By the way, on a really big Saturday night, the old man would take us out on the turnpike to just look at license plates. Yeah, and a car would go rolling by you. It says, New York. He's going east to New York. New York was where all those movies were made about. I mean, Fred Astaire, the lights, Manhattan. People were always dancing on pianos. They never danced on a piano in Indiana and got away with it. Any piano dancing, Dad, it's the slam. And at night, I'd hear those trains going out. We'd study maps in school, the East, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And I had this image of what New Jersey was like. I'll bet none of you can imagine what a kid living in the Midwest thinks New Jersey is like when he's never seen it. Just a magical place, new. The word new. New Jersey. I never envisioned Route 31. Or 22. Oh, let me tell you, Route 22 is the ultimate American artery of chicanery and dreams. I mean, the first night I came hurtling out of the Lincoln Tunnel and found myself on Route 22, I knew I was at the Mecca. I mean, anybody who wants to see junk, who wants to see... I mean, hour after hour you drive and there's signs and wires, trucks roaring by. And then out of the darkness, the beautiful flagship comes moving. Oh, God, only New Jersey could create that. I mean, the flagship, I mean, honest to God, looks like a ship sailing forever towards New York, never making it. And up on top is a sailor with his flags. I'll bet none of you know what those flags mean he's got. That's semaphore. Wigwag. Code, I know. And New Jersey would not like it if it knew. What for years that sailor's been saying about Jersey. And you drive along, and they're coming up out of the darkness as you head towards the beautiful Watchung Hills. The Watchung Hills, they sound like mysterious mountains. And after you actually get on one of the Watchung Hills, you think that every Airedale in creation has been there first. You don't know what an Airedale is? Well, and as you drive past the flagship, you see, one after the other, thousands of them, signs telling you of all the delights. Fava shoes. Fava shoes made out of the purest vinyl. Only shoes that got balsa wood heels. The Pat Boone Hamburger Heaven. And when the shadow of the Pat Boone Hamburger Heaven falls so beautifully over the Leaning Tower of Pizza. God, you know you're in Jersey, my Jersey. And you go past the concrete Mexican store. Oh, yeah, Jersey. I never saw a concrete Mexican until I came to New Jersey. I'll never forget, I wasn't in New Jersey an hour, and I'm driving. It was at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm coming back from a show I was doing. I was driving through Hackensack. By the way, that's a great name for a town. Hackensack. It's got guts. Hackensack. Sounds like somebody dragging up an oyster. Hackensack. Whack, whack. That's the name of a town you bark out. Hackensack. It's an old Indian town. It's an old Indian word. It means place where chief dragged up oyster. Blah, poof. Hackensack, and I'm driving through it. I love the towns in New Jersey. Hackensack, Hoboken. Indiana doesn't have names like that. They have names like Indianapolis, Muncie, Fort Wayne. You've got P-Pack. Ho-Hocus. Great names. These are names with hair on them, you know. Mean names. And I'm driving through Hackensack. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll tell you how it happened. My first introduction to New Jersey, I'm driving along. Nobody else was on the streets. All these little Hackensack houses. Each one cradling a Met fan. A drinker of Rheingold. Oh, God, Jersey. And I'm driving up to an intersection, and the light is red. It was quiet. It was a summer day, just like this. The light is red. Now, I think it can tell a lot about a man's whole personality. What he does when he comes up to a stoplight with no traffic at 5 in the morning. There's a brief moment you say to yourself, go ahead, you son of a bitch, go on. Nobody around here, go on, it's going through. I'll let you know what kind I am. I stop after signaling. Nobody there. But I stopped. It was so quiet you could hear the stop sign ticking. You ever been so quiet you could hear it going tick, 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 red light? There I am, obeying a machine. I smiled at it. Hoping for mercy. You ever had the feeling somehow stoplights can arrest you? They'll come up with it yet. Wait. I'm waiting there. But I got this feeling. You know the feeling, you've all had it, that somebody is looking at me. Just felt it. I'm alone in the car. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. All of Hackensack is asleep. It's coming from this direction. I look back over, and sure enough, there standing on a lawn was this little concrete Mexican. He's wearing this little concrete sombrero, you know. He's got a concrete serape, and he is leading a concrete burro. He's got a concrete Mexican. They don't have those in Indiana. What the hell? It's very embarrassing. The light continued to be red. It's looking right at me. Little concrete eyes. What do you do? You know, finally, I said, hi, you know. Senor. The light changed green. I put the car in first. I pulled through the intersection. And I see him in my rear view mirror. He's following me down the street, smiling. You know, like those pictures you always see in these really bad novelty stores? Buy yourself a picture of our blessed Savior. The eyes follow you as you move. You can get a picture of a cow whose eyes follow you as you move. The magic pictures. I know a guy, I hate to tell you this. No, I better not. No. Oh, there's mothers and children and everybody here. No. Well, I drove through the intersection and I see that little Mexican looking at me, that little beautiful concrete Mexican. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, your mind works differently than it does at any other time of the day. It's that magic hour between night and day where no time exists. The ancients wrote about that, by the way. It's the moment of suspended time. And I see that little Mexican. And suddenly, in my mind, now I wouldn't have thought of this had it not been 5 in the morning. I see a scene outside of Mexico City. In my mind. You see a couple of cactus. You see this beautiful, well-kept adobe hut. It's got shutters. And standing in the front yard is a concrete New Jerseyite. He's wearing his native costume. He's got this suit from Great Eastern. He's got his WMCA good guy sweatshirt on. He's got this little concrete martini. And next to him is his native vehicle. He's got a little concrete Pinto standing there with a bashed inside. For authenticity, of course. Only in America. I can't imagine an Englishman having a concrete Frenchman on his lawn. It's weird. And only in Jersey do you see this. And it makes me love this state. And so, on one night, a thing happened to me. I'm going to tell a story that some of you may have remembered I told once 5 years ago. I rarely tell this story. It's a true story. And it has frightening connotations, overtones. You know, every one of us live through moments in our lives which seem completely random. But those may be the few moments that we actually learn anything out of life. Did any of you ever learn anything about life out of school? I mean, nobody has ever asked me about isosceles triangles. I spent 4 weeks trying to fight isosceles triangles. I go to college, I spent 2 years studying the Punic Wars. I haven't even met a guy since who knew what a Pune was. Most of the people think you take them when you... Says, yeah, I know what them things are. You eat them, they got wrinkles, you know. They're better than X-Lax, buddy. No, the Punic Wars, they... Oh, well. Even the New York Times has ignored the Punic Wars in its Sunday crossword puzzle. I know about it. It's not done me one damn bit of good. But that one night that the old man came home and said, let's go out for ice cream, became a historic moment in my life. We went out in the car, got in the Oldsmobile, drove down the driveway. It was a nice, hot night, just like any other hot night. Incidentally, I always feel that the most important moments in our lives happen on totally nondescript nights, when you least expect it. And that's the way it was. It was hot. Maybe that's why it happened. It was 110. Humidity, 500–600%. Wave your hand like that, and you get little lightning clouds. Bloom, bloom. Actually, you see the lightning playing around your hand. Bloom, bloom, bloom. You go like that, you got water all around you. We're driving, the old man's wearing his shorts. He has these mattress shorts. He had his White Sox T-shirt on. Says, I am a White Sox fan. He admitted to it proudly. My mother's sitting over here in the car with her aluminum rheostats. By the way, when the car would get moving and the wind would come in through the ventilator, you could hear her rheostats would make a faint humming sound. And then as the car got going faster, the pitch would pick up. You'd hear, whoo. And I'm sitting in the back seat right behind my old man. My kid brother always sat behind my mother. He's sitting back there, his nose is running, he's whining. He always had to keep in practice. I'm sitting there listening to the old man. By the way, my father's art form was pure, undistilled, magically delineated with a fantastic beat and tempo, obscenity. When he was in the car. And he kept up this running, beautiful stream at all the other drivers. With one flick of the hand, he could conjure up obscenities man has never heard of. He invented his own words. And like all true artists, by the way, he knew the tempo and beat was important, selection. He hated amateur swearers. Nothing is sadder than a girl who has discovered liberation and goes around saying, damn, or hell, or, the old man says, come on, use it right. He wasn't against using it, he was for using it right. Modulated, beat, tempo, placing it correctly. And so we're driving down towards the igloo. Everything is normal. The old man is going away there. My kid brother's nose is running. You could hear the wind going through those rheostats. It was kind of a distant sound of an ancient Greek chorus. Woo. My mother and father would have these big arguments. How many of you remember your mother and father having arguments in the front seat? What are you applauding? I mean, they get these arguments, and as they would argue, my mother's head would turn, and it would change the pitch. And you'd hear this Greek chorus go, oh, oh, whoa, lost lost and gone, oh, thy ancient seas. Ooh. Yes, it was right out of Electra. You could just see my mother with the cruise. What boots this cruise that I carry? Oh, brother on some far shore, Orestes. Ooh. You never hear Woody Allen quote Sophocles. That was the Sophoclean version of Electra. Not the same as Euripides. Well, by the way, this was a Greek tragedy. As we went down Holman Avenue, the old man says, "What the hell's going on up there?" And sure enough, the street was filled with thousands of people. This was a hot July night in Indiana. Thousands of people in front of this igloo store. You could see cars parked, people running down the street. The old man says, "What the hell's going on?" He got out, there's a guy running past here. He said, "Hey, what's going on?" He says, "They're having an ice cream price war." The Borden Dairy store across the street is selling ice cream cones, double dip, 2 for a dime. The old man flipped and we went running down. Sure enough, thousands of people were standing in front of right across the street from Igloo was the Borden ice cream store. Lady Esther Ice Cream. Lady Borden. And thousands of people are waiting in line to get their ice cream cones, and they're coming out with giant ice cream cones, big 2-dip ice cream cones, 2 of them for a dime. And on the window it says, "Price War, double dip ice cream cones, 2 for a dime, any flavor." And across the street, the Igloo was empty. And I saw Mr. Ferguson standing in there behind his counter with all his clerks waiting. Nobody. His ice cream cones double dip were 25 cents. 2 for a dime. Borden was going to kill him. You don't think we waited, do you? You think we went to see Mr. Ferguson? Are you kidding? We stood in line. We were getting up near the front of the line when all of a sudden, Mr. Ferguson, he's looking out. You can see him right there at the window. He comes running out with a big can of whitewash. He's got a brush. "So what are you guys? I thought you were my friends. Go ahead. Borden's is a great big company. All that cow, Elsie the cow business. Huh? All right, Elsie, take this." He takes his brush. Ice cream cones. Ice cream cones. 2 dips. Where do you see this? 3 cents. The crowd, boo! They went across the street. It was like a human tidal wave. You could see little old ladies falling and the crowd trampling on them. You could hear the screams of the wounded and the dying. The old man says, "Come on, let's go, kids." We're standing in line. Thousands by now, by the way, the word has gotten out all over northern Indiana, as far south as Muncie. They're selling 3-cent ice cream cones. Guys were arriving in their pickup trucks from Kentucky, 400 miles to the south. Guys were coming down from Chicago to the north. There are probably 100,000 people waiting in line in front of the Igloo. And these kids are putting them on, boy. 3 cents a shot. And Borden's is empty. Empty. They got this big plastic Elsie the cows there. And that Borden guy looked like a typical organization man. He's the only guy that I ever saw serve ice cream in a gray flannel suit. He was a boarding man. Well, of course, he has to get on the wire to headquarters. You see him there with the ticker tape. Ticker tape right there next to the chocolate nut. Pretty soon the bell goes ding, 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 ding. We're all waiting in line. Thousands of people are coming out with ice cream cones. People were buying as many as 10 and 15 ice cream cones, carrying them like this, dripping, trailing it behind them. The ground was littered with busted cones. You could see the dying and the wounded still laying in the street. Who the hell cared? This was it. But once in a lifetime moment, the boarding man came out. He's got his brush. Says ice cream cones, 2 for a dime. He just takes the 2 for a dime off, looks over at the crowd, holds up his brush. Ice cream cones. 1 cent. 1 cent. There was a sigh that went through the mob. A corporate sigh. Ooh. Ooh. There are people today, I will guarantee you, that lie in their sleep late at night in Indiana. Veterans of those wars. Who see in their mind a sign that says, double dip ice cream cone, 1 cent. Hard to believe. Well, the crowd stood for a second. 1 cent. And you could see Mr. Ferguson in there. He's got this scared look. Had happened. A brief instant, and then this great tidal wave of humanity rolling over and over, end over end. There were 17 killed in that second wave. And of course, the word is getting out all the way down to Frankfort, Kentucky now, and into Tennessee. They're arriving with buckets to carry them out. And they start serving the 1 cent ice cream cones. The people are throwing pennies down. 1 cent ice cream cone, 1 cent. Bang, 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 like that. And now it is 2 o'clock in the morning, and this fantastic battle has been going on for 3 hours. Ice cream cones, double dip, 1 penny. But Mr. Ferguson was a man who knew that when your time comes, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Courage is a matter of knowing when your time comes and then executing. The crowd had swelled. In fact, there were so many people in northern Indiana that the state was tilting downward. It was beginning to ship water up near Whiting. The lake was coming in. There I am, a little kid, in the middle of all this. We haven't even gotten an ice cream cone yet. We just kept going back and forth. Mr. Ferguson looked out at the crowd and he says, all right, 1 cent ice cream. How many of you people out there think you're getting a bargain? Huh? You ain't seen nothing. Takes his brush, mixes it up. Mr. Ferguson was a man of great drama. Here was a sign. It said ice cream cones, 3 cents. Reaches down, takes the wet cloth, takes the 3 cents off. Ice cream cones. How do you like that, you bastard? Ice cream cones, free. I don't have to tell you, incidentally, on that moment was the first time that the seismic observation station, the earthquake reading station at Notre Dame University, 80 miles to the south, registered a 9 on the Richter scale. The earth trembled. The crowd roared over. Mr. Ferguson's window just went in. And he and his kids, the whole crowd, they take the cans, they put them out like this, and he says, make your own. They're free, free. If I'm going to die, I'm going to do it great. They're digging it up. Well, my old man knew, like Mr. Ferguson, his time had come. He put his head down. First time I ever saw my old man in action. Meaner than a cop. Put his head down and he bored in. People parting like the waves, screaming. He came back out with 37 ice cream cones. Handmade. Each double dip, $1.5 quarts per dip. He had ice cream cones that weighed 7-10 pounds. What it looked like was a giant ball of ice cream with a little fur of cones on the bottom. Looked like you could walk around and milk them, you know? Let's hear it. Come on. We're getting warmed up. Well, I want to tell you, it was fantastic. It was 2 in the morning, and you could hear sirens wailing in the distance. The police are arriving. You could see shoes on the street. A broken crutch. A wheelchair that had caught flame. All that going back and forth the streets, you know. Burned out the bearings. You saw a foot sticking out of the sewer. But it was happy. The police are coming. And then everybody noticed at once Borden's had turned out the lights. They were through. Mr. Ferguson had won. The town was laid waste for blocks. Garages had collapsed. We finally got home at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was one of the happiest evenings of our life. Little did I suspect that what I was seeing was the human locust at work. And there is one in all of us. There is not one of you that would pass up a free $10 bill laying on the street. If it had 2,000 bolts in it. Well, that became known in northern Indiana as the Great Ice Cream War. The Great Ice Cream Riot. And the following winter, guys would come into the A&P and they'd talk about it. And then the next year, they talked about it again. And like all great human events, it passed into legend. And then people began to doubt that it happened. No one would believe they had ice cream cones free. 1 cent, thousands of people came. But I was there. I saw it. And so last summer, I went back to my hometown, as I often do. My mother still lives out there. And there's the igloo. Still there. I went into the igloo. Just because, you know, it's where I went when I was a kid. The same stools, the counter, those chromium boxes with the napkins, the ones we used to take out and stick in the glasses and set on fire. Oh, yes, we had many trickies. Oh, terrible stuff. I squatted down. Here's this guy serving the ice cream back there. He is now the current Mr. Ferguson. A guy I went to school with. now owns the joint. Doesn't even know me. I come in, I sit down. He's walking around back there. He's got this little hat like the igloo. Looks like a Korean sergeant. The kids are back there making the cones. He comes over and says, "What do you have, Bud?" I looked up at him and I said, "I'll tell you what I'll have. I think I'll have one of them 3-cent cones." He looked at me. He says, "My God, you were there. You were there at the ice cream war." I said, "Yep." Somehow I felt like I was at Bull Run. I was at the Battle of Little Round Top. I saw the mini balls go whipping up the hill. I said, "Yes, I was there." And he says, "God," he says, "you know, nobody in this town even believes that it ever happened." I said, "Well, I was there." And he says, "God, so was I. I was working that night." He says, "You remember how old Ferguson used the whitewash? What style?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure do." And he says, goes back, makes me this giant double dip cone, great big one, like the kind my old man made. He said, "Here, anybody who went through the war, it's on the house." I mean, that's a true story, and that's what happens in the heat of summer. That's summer. Could not have happened in the wintertime. There's a madness in the human soul. I see it in the crowd out here tonight. I see eyes glinting that have not glinted since 1915. Heat, mosquitoes, midges. Within every one of us there lies a latent, sublimated beachcomber, lying on an eternal beach, letting the rest of the world go to hell. How many of you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and look over at whoever you're with and say, "What the hell made me do that? Is this what life was supposed to be? Big fat Fred?" The only guy I noticed sleeps with his feet in a bookcase. Look at him. Oh, that's the human condition. Nobody feels that his life is worked out. Every last one of you feel that other people are living more official lives. They got scripts. It started with me in 2nd grade. I remember Miss Shields saying, "Now, boys and girls, I want all of you to write what you want to be when you grow up." Half the class immediately started writing. I still haven't figured what I'm going to be. I really haven't. No, most lives are accidental. You just flood along. Now, most of us have a suspicion that there are others that are leading real lives. They are true lives. Most people believe that actors live real lives. Robert Redford knows about sex. You just wrestle around in a Pontiac. Jane Fonda knows about politics. Whereas all you know is that the Yankees lost. And you look at the Johnny Carson show, and everybody's glib. They all have answers. They've all either made a record, made a film, wrote a book, Or divorce Zsa Zsa Gabor. Johnny Carson's got all those funny things, and he pulls his little cute ear, and he says those funny things. What you don't know is as he's sitting there at his desk, and I'm telling you the truth, he's got thousands of little ad-libs all neatly written. He just keeps flipping them over, one after the other. Oh, is that right? Oh. You have no cue cards in your life. You're ad-libbing. And most people are bad ad-libbers. How many of you in this crowd feel that one day your true life will begin? A light bulb will light. Bum, ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. And forever I will be happy. Now, actually what life consists of is getting born, going to school, which is incomprehensible to most of us, learning about the rainfall in Peru. You're looking at the only guy who can tell you that Bolivia exports tin. Learned it in second grade. I've been using it ever since. The only thing I learned in all of school that I can actually remember. And it works great, by the way. I go to a cocktail party, you know. You go to one of these Bucks County cocktail parties, everybody's standing around, you know, smart-assing away there, you know. They're talking away, and blah, blah, blah. Of course, Schopenhauer never truly matured. Implying, of course, he did. Chester, of course, is very mature. Of course, that's the great fallacy in Freud. He didn't think his work all the way through. Now, when you're in that kind of a scene, keep your mouth shut. Walk around the crowd with a thin, sardonic smile on your face. You must learn to stand. You stand thusly. Don't. You stand properly and you walk thusly. Allow the lemon peel to swirl clockwise. Wait till a pregnant pause in the conversation and just, with proper timing, understatement, just say, but none of you are taking into account the tin economy of Bolivia. Now, the point is to leave right away. You are now ahead. And like most victories, it is short-lived unless you get the hell out. Say, well, gang, I've got to run. So out there in the darkness, get out there, go to the Dairy Queen, and allow yourself to fester as a true Jerseyite. Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you very much for coming. Come on, let's hear it, for God's sakes. I want to tell you, I've enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed it half as much as I have. You were okay with the mosquitoes and all that, and I'm delighted you came, and drive back on 31 and pray for everyone who has to do it. Thank you. Good night.